The border between Israel and Lebanon is a tense and volatile place, a region fraught with historical animosities and political complexities. This narrow strip of land has been a flashpoint for decades, with both sides maintaining a heavy military presence. It has been the scene of numerous conflicts and clashes over the years, each skirmish adding to the deep-seated mistrust and hostility. The history of violence here is long and bloody, with each side suffering significant losses. On date of event, violence erupted once more, shattering the uneasy peace that had settled over the region. The sudden outbreak of hostilities caught many by surprise, reigniting fears of a broader conflict. Israeli soldiers and Hezbollah fighters engaged in a fierce firefight, marking a dangerous escalation in tensions. The intensity of the battle underscored the fragile nature of the ceasefire agreements that had been in place. The clashes began with a barrage of artillery fire, a deafening prelude to the chaos that would follow. The sound of explosions echoed across the border, signaling the start of yet another violent confrontation. Hezbollah, the Iran-backed Shiite militant group, launched rockets and mortars into Israeli positions along the border. Their attacks were precise and relentless, aimed at inflicting maximum damage and drawing a strong response from Israel. Israel Defense Forces, or IDF, responded with their own artillery fire, targeting Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon. The exchange of fire was intense, with both sides sustaining casualties and damage. The situation remains highly volatile, with the potential for further escalation looming large. The exchange of artillery fire was intense and sustained. Explosions rocked the region as both sides traded blows. The fighting lasted for several hours, sending shockwaves through the region. The border area, usually tense but relatively quiet, was transformed into a battlefield. The artillery duel caused damage on both sides of the border. Israeli communities near the border were forced to seek shelter in bomb shelters. The sounds of explosions shattered the quiet of daily life, a stark reminder of the ever-present threat of violence. In addition to the artillery barrage, Hezbollah attempted to infiltrate Israeli territory. A group of Hezbollah fighters armed with explosives and small arms tried to cross the border fence. Their objective remains unclear, but the infiltration attempt marked a significant escalation. The IDF detected the infiltration attempt and responded swiftly. Israeli soldiers engaged the Hezbollah fighters, preventing them from crossing the border fence. A fierce firefight ensued, with both sides exchanging gunfire at close range. The IDF responded to the Hezbollah attacks with a combination of artillery fire and airstrikes. Israeli warplanes targeted Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon, aiming to degrade their military capabilities. The Israeli government vowed to hold Hezbollah accountable for the attacks. The clashes resulted in casualties on the Israeli side. 8 Israeli soldiers were killed in the fighting, marking the heaviest loss of life for the IDF in a single incident in recent years. The deaths sent shockwaves through Israeli society, raising fears of a wider conflict. Section 5, Roots of Conflict, a history of enmity. The recent clashes between Israel and Hezbollah are just the latest chapter in a long and bloody conflict. The two sides have been locked in a state of hostility for decades, their history marked by violence and mistrust. The roots of the conflict can be traced back to the Israeli occupation of southern Lebanon, which began in 1982. Hezbollah emerged as a resistance movement, fighting against the Israeli presence. The Israeli withdrawal from Lebanon in 2000 did little to quell the animosity. Section 6. The Shadow of the Second Lebanon War. The 2006 Lebanon War, a month-long conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, casts a long shadow over the region. This war, which erupted in July and lasted until August, saw intense fighting and significant casualties on both sides. The conflict was marked by heavy bombardments, ground invasions, and fierce resistance. The war ended in a stalemate, but it left deep scars on both sides. Thousands of lives were lost and many more were injured. The infrastructure in Lebanon was heavily damaged, with entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble. In Israel, the constant threat of rocket attacks created a climate of fear and uncertainty. The threat of another devastating conflict looms large. Both sides have been preparing for the possibility of renewed hostilities, with military build-ups and strategic planning. The border areas remain tense, with frequent skirmishes and exchanges of fire. The 2006 war demonstrated Hezbollah's military capabilities and its willingness to engage in direct conflict with Israel. Hezbollah's use of guerrilla tactics and its arsenal of rockets posed a significant challenge to the Israeli defense forces. It also highlighted the devastating consequences of such a conflict for both sides. The human cost was immense, with countless families torn apart and communities shattered. The economic impact was also severe, with the cost of rebuilding running into billions of dollars. The recent clashes have reignited fears of a return to large-scale fighting. The memories of the 2006 war are still fresh in the minds of those who lived through it, and the prospect of another conflict is a source of deep anxiety. Both Israel and Hezbollah continue to prepare for the worst, even as they navigate the complex and volatile political landscape of the region. Section 7: Hezbollah's evolving capabilities. Since the 2006 war, Hezbollah has steadily increased its military capabilities. The group has acquired a vast arsenal of rockets, missiles, and other weapons, many supplied by Iran. Hezbollah's arsenal poses a significant threat to Israel. Hezbollah has also gained valuable combat experience, fighting alongside Syrian government forces in the Syrian civil war. The group's battle-hardened fighters and improved weaponry make it a formidable adversary for Israel. Section 8: Iran's role and regional tensions. Iran plays a key role in the Israel-Hezbollah conflict. Iran provides Hezbollah with financial, military, and political support, viewing the group as a proxy force against Israel. Iran's involvement adds another layer of complexity to the conflict. The Israel-Hezbollah conflict is not just a bilateral issue, it is deeply intertwined with regional tensions. The conflict has the potential to escalate rapidly, drawing in other actors in the region and further destabilizing the Middle East. Section 9: International response and calls for restraint. The recent escalation in hostilities has drawn significant attention from the global community. The international community has reacted to the recent clashes with deep concern. The United Nations, the United States, and other world powers have called for restraint from both sides. Leaders from various countries have issued statements urging both Israel and Hezbollah to avoid actions that could lead to a wider conflict. They have emphasized the importance of maintaining peace and stability in the region, highlighting the potential consequences of further escalation. The international community is acutely aware of the potential for the situation to spiral out of control. The memories of past conflicts, particularly the devastating war in 2006, are still fresh in the minds of many. Efforts are being made to de-escalate the situation through diplomatic channels. Peace talks and negotiations are being prioritized to prevent a repeat of the devastating 2006 war. International peacekeeping forces are on high alert, ready to intervene if necessary. Humanitarian aid is also being prepared to assist those affected by the conflict. The United Nations Security Council has been holding emergency meetings to address the crisis. Diplomats are engaged in intense discussions, seeking a viable solution to the conflict. Around the world, people are calling for peace. Protests and demonstrations have erupted in various countries, with citizens urging their governments to take action to prevent further violence. The hope is that through combined international efforts, a peaceful resolution can be achieved. The influence of the international community, though limited, is crucial in these efforts. However, their influence over the parties involved is limited. The situation remains tense, and the path to peace is fraught with challenges. The world watches closely, hoping for a resolution that will bring lasting peace to the region. Section 10: The fragile peace and uncertain future. The recent clashes between Israel and Hezbollah are a stark reminder of the fragility of peace in the region. The border between the two countries remains a tinderbox, vulnerable to flare-ups that could ignite a wider conflict. The future remains uncertain. Both Israel and Hezbollah have signaled their willingness to engage in further violence if provoked. The risk of miscalculation or unintended escalation remains high, threatening to plunge the region into another devastating war. Section 11: The unending cycle of violence. The Israel-Hezbollah conflict is part of a larger cycle of violence in the Middle East. Decades of conflict and mistrust have created a volatile and dangerous situation. Breaking this cycle of violence will require a fundamental shift in the dynamics of the region. Finding a lasting peace between Israel and Hezbollah will be a complex and challenging task. It will require dialogue, compromise, and a willingness to address the root causes of the conflict. Until then, the threat of violence will continue to hang over the region.